When it comes to real estate investing, problems equal opportunities. We're going to talk about that in this episode of Real Estate Revenue. Hey everybody, welcome to Real Estate Revenue. I'm your host, Paul Airy, and in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the problems that you can run into when you're looking at properties. So it's kind of interesting that when a lot of people start YouTube channels, they come up with all kinds of excuses as to why they can't start, why they can't start shooting videos. They don't have the right microphone. They don't have the right camera. They don't have this or that. Same thing is true in real estate investing. New investors especially, but sometimes experienced, seasoned investors will come up with all kinds of excuses as to why they don't want to buy a property. So we're going to cover some of those things, and I'm going to point out to you why those are actually opportunities. Most problems that you will come across in real estate investing are actually an opportunity to get a better deal. I don't know if you've ever watched some of the shows on HGTV where people are buying houses and they're looking for the perfect house, and if it's not just what they want, they don't want to buy it. Somebody paints a bedroom pink or purple, and somebody paints a laundry room or a dining room red or something, and they can't see beyond that ugly color, and they can't figure out for some reason that they can go buy a gallon of paint and cover it and be done with it and have a nice house. Well, it's the same in commercial real estate investing. Some people have trouble seeing past ugly. And so we're going to talk about that here. So first of all, when you look for a property, what kind of problems are you going to run across? Well, there are a lot of them. I'm going to go over just a few of them here, but there are a lot of problems. And this is why I always say, get inspections done. In a commercial contract, there's something called, in Texas, it's a feasibility period. In your state, the contract might read an option period or due diligence period. If you're used to dealing with residential real estate, you're probably going to see it as an option period, but in commercial, it's a feasibility period, and it needs to be long. 30 days won't cut it. You need at least 45 days. I try to get 60 to 90 days, especially if it's a bigger property and a more expensive property. I'm going to try to get 90 days, and I have gone as long as 120 days, 180 days. It just depends on the property. That gives you time to go through and make inspections and find all the little problems. Now, just because you've signed a contract and the price is in the contract doesn't mean you can't go back and renegotiate the price based on what you find in these inspections, because during your feasibility period, you can cancel that contract for any reason or for no reason. You don't have to explain why. You can just cancel that contract and get your earnest money back, unless somebody has put in there that you can't get your earnest money back in the contract. Don't do that. Don't let them keep your earnest money from during that feasibility period. Always make sure that you can get that money back if you back out of the contract. Now, once you pass that feasibility period date, that expiration date, then you're stuck with the contract. You're stuck with losing your earnest money if you back out after that. But always remember, before that day comes, you can back out and get that earnest money back. So what are the issues you're going to run across? These are a few of the problems. First of all, this is a very common one. You're going to walk through the property. Don't forget to look up. Look up and see if you find this. Stained ceiling tiles. Now that could be a sign of a couple of different things. Could be a leaky roof. Water comes through the roof and drips down on the ceiling tile, and it makes stains. Another thing to look for related to this, if you don't see any stains, look to see if you see any new ceiling tiles that don't quite match the rest of the ceiling. Sometimes they'll replace these, and the new tiles they put in are obviously newer than the ones around it, and you can tell. So if you see that, you need to look for the same problems as if there were a stained ceiling tile. And the other issue that could be causing that is the air conditioning system. Sometimes condensation from that will drip on the ceiling tile. Sometimes there's a pan under the air conditioner if it's mounted up in your ceiling that catches condensation. Sometimes that will leak or it'll overflow because the little drain pipe is clogged up. That's a minor problem. And if that's what's causing it, then that's not a big deal. Don't be afraid of these problems. These problems are easy to fix. They may not seem like it. You might think, if you don't have any experience in construction, you might think that these are difficult, expensive problems, but they're not. Once you get into it, you'll find that is the case. So check ceiling tiles. Have an inspector come look at the roof. Have a roofing company send someone out to check out the roof. Don't forget the parking lot, the asphalt. If you have an asphalt parking lot, these little spider web cracks are something that are eventually going to have to be fixed. So why hasn't the landlord fixed these problems? Well, you're going to see that more and more in the next couple of years because for one reason or another, they don't want to spend the money to fix it. Now, what's happening now with our economy changing and commercial real estate about to go through some serious problem issues with refinancing these notes. In commercial real estate, financing is done differently than it is in residential. You don't just go get a 30-year mortgage in commercial properties. You get one that may be amortized over 10 years or 15 years. So your payments are structured like you have a 10 or 15-year loan, but you have a balloon payment after 5 years or maybe 7 years, and you have to pay off the remaining balance of that loan at that time. Well, guess what? Nobody pays it off. Everybody refinances. So after 5 years, your balloon payment's due. You refinance the remainder of the balance, or if you've increased your income on the property, you get a new appraisal. You're going to get a new appraisal anyway every time you refinance. But if you've increased the income on the property, the new appraisal will reflect that and your value will be higher. So you might refinance and get some cash out and get a higher loan. Get a loan for a higher amount and pull some cash out of there and use it for something else. Maybe you can use it to fix these problems, or maybe you can use it to go buy another property. So why haven't they fixed these things? Well, what's coming up now, you're going to see more of it because these loans are going to be more difficult to refinance. They're going to need cash to pay their balance down some, or the banks are going to say, we can't refinance it at that. You got to pay it down some because the interest rates have gone up and all the numbers no longer work. The numbers they had when they bought this property, the debt service coverage ratio, their cash flow, the net operating income, none of that works anymore. It's all changed. So in order to make an adjustment, they need to cut their expenses so they can get their net operating income up. Makes the property look more attractive to the lender and to a seller if they're trying to sell it. So they start neglecting the maintenance. It's called deferred maintenance, and that's what you want to find. You want to look for that. Also in the parking lot, potholes. I've seen potholes big enough that you could drive your entire car into the pothole. Sometimes they get out of hand and people don't get those fixed. If you haven't let it go so far that you have to get a whole new parking lot, you can patch it and you can do what's called seal coating. It's a lot less expensive than getting a whole new parking lot. Here's another good one. Not sure if you can see that. Let me put that on a bigger slide so you can see. It is unfinished rehab projects. If you see the left half of that building has businesses in it. The right half of that building has been gutted and it's empty and it's not finished. Now, if somebody came to look at that, if I came to look at that to buy, I would be excited. I look for problems like this. I want to find a building with problems. When I find a building with problems like this, it means I can get it for a cheaper price and I can make more money on that property than if I bought a move-in ready property, completely refinished, or maybe a new construction. I don't want that. I want one like this that I can refinish, I can rehab it, I can make more money on that property. Ugly buildings. There are a lot of ugly buildings. This one's kind of ugly. And ugly landscaping. You notice these planters here, these planter boxes, they're just kind of stuck out there in the middle. One of them looks like it has a bar stool sitting in the middle of it. And the plants are very unkept. They have not been maintained at all. And the building itself is not very attractive. It's boring. It's an ugly property. I would love to buy that property. If the occupancy is good, even if it's not good, but if I thought I had a chance of filling that thing up and I could clean this up and make it look like a nice building, make it more exciting, I would love to buy that property. And it would not scare me at all that it's an ugly building. I can make it look nice. So you have to have that kind of mindset. It takes a different kind of mindset. Don't be afraid of problems. It got this way because somebody was neglecting the property. I see this all the time. Landlords get cheap, they get lazy, they don't want to mess with it, they don't want to spend money on that property, they just want to collect the rent. What they don't seem to understand is they're going to lose tenants eventually. The people that are in this building, their customers are not going to want to go there. And they're going to get tired of complaining to the landlord about these problems. So when their lease comes due, guess what? They're going to start looking around and they're going to move. That's how these buildings end up empty. So don't be that person. Now, this is a great story here. It's not a beautiful building. Let me make the slide bigger. That is not a beautiful building, but it was a beautiful deal. This building has an amazing story. This was one of my listings, and in hindsight, I should have bought this myself. It's exactly the kind of property I would like to own. But at the time we were getting ready to move out of town and didn't want to start a project when I was going to be moving across the state. So I got one of my clients, showed him the property. He bought it. Very low price. This landlord was a don't wanter. He did not want that property anymore. He wanted to get rid of it. He had a much larger building next door to this, an 18,000 foot office building. I sold that one too. And this one, he really wanted to get rid of it. Sold it extremely cheap. Now, why is this such a good deal? It wasn't very much money. It was a little over $100,000. And you see there's 3 spaces. Now the property that was sold are the 2 spaces on the right. That was sold as one building. And the buyer immediately put a tenant in. Now this building was open on the inside, no walls. There was one wall going down the middle dividing these 2 spaces, and each side had a little tiny little restroom with non-working plumbing. So he had somebody that wanted to rent that immediately. I believe it was a church. They rented that out, had it for a couple of years, and now they've vacated. He's going through this and renovating this building, and he's going to make it look really nice. He's made money off of it now for a couple of years, and he's taking that and he's doing a rehab on this building. And by the time he gets done, he's already redone the area around the doors and windows. And he'll be doing the rest of the exterior and the interior. Now, here's the cool part about this deal, and this is why you should look for problems. This is in a downtown area. A lot of cities in the U.S. have a downtown revitalization program. And what they do is they provide grant money for properties like this that need to be renovated and made to look nice again. Now, this building was built in the 30s. So it's been around a long time. It's got some age on it. But this grant, they have an interior and an exterior grant. The interior grant is a matching grant up to $200,000. So what that means is if he spends $400,000 on this property, they will reimburse him $200,000 in grant money. So basically whatever he spends, he's going to get half of it back. So he gets his work done at half price. Now, the cool part about this is it gets even better. You'll notice if you look right above the doors, there's an address above each one of those. This property, even though it was sold as one property, it's platted as two properties. It has two separate addresses, and so it is eligible for two separate grants. So he can get up to $200,000 for each section of that building. So he can get it twice. And that will cover things like plumbing, electrical, asbestos abatement, lead paint removal, any of that kind of thing, interior walls, flooring, all that stuff. It'll cover that in that grant. Now there's another grant for the exterior. It's not very much. If it'll go up to $25,000. If he spends $50,000 on the exterior, that's a lot of money to spend on the exterior of this building, and they'll pay him back $25,000. So he'll get that at $25,000. So he's basically, by the time this is over, he's almost going to have a free building. So he did that because he was not afraid of the problems. He knew what he could do with that. So this is a fantastic example of looking for a problem in a property. This problem, this building is going to end up making him a lot of money over the years when he gets this rented out, probably for $4,000 to $5,000 a month for that building. He will end up making a lot of profit. So that is why you should look for problems in properties, and why you should be excited when you find problems in properties. If a property's been on the market for a long time, it's been on the market for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and no one has bought it, and not many people have looked at it, and no one's made an offer, that's a good opportunity. Somebody needs to get rid of that building, but they can't get any interest in it because it's ugly, it's broken down, it needs work. So have a look at it, and look at it with a new set of eyes. Change your mindset about that property. Learn to develop a little vision on these properties. If you have to, find someone who's a good decorator or contractor who can see what you can't see. Take them with you to look at the property. And take those people with you, let them look at it and see what kind of ideas they have for it. So go out and look for some properties with problems, see what you can find. Leave me some comments below if you have any questions. If you run across a property like this in your neighborhood, let me know about it. I'd love to hear your story, love to hear what's going on, and maybe we can find something to make a video on. So just remember, one property can change your life. One property did a lot for me when I first started this, and it can do a lot for you too. So that's about it for this episode. I'll see you next time.